Good morning. We are back for the toxic roommate trial. We're a few minutes late, but not really. They ended up having to have an attorney and the judge talk about scheduling and a few things. So I went ahead and I paused it, and we are going to pick up where I paused it at, but we may even skip ahead a minute or two, and then we'll be right on time with them. So let me go ahead and minimize myself, and we'll get it playing. This is day 5. I believe we have not finished day 4, so that might be something we do later today. The Monica Sementelli trial is supposed to be off this week. We'll see about that. They were supposed to be off on Friday, but as we know, they ended up having it. So we will see. All right.
The idea was to have somebody available this afternoon. Unlikely we'll get there, but just in case. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead and tell him to start sleeping. Okay. Those are the only 2 items?
That's all we have, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sorgan, do you want to address those questions now, or would you like some time?
Well, Judge, the only thing I would like to address, obviously the rules state what the rules state. So with regards to experts being present, I am a little concerned, though. We're told about a second expert. We've not received a second expert notice from the defense.
Well, that would be an issue, wouldn't it?
Yes, it certainly would.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I can address that. We sent over an
like
expert
the tone.
notice back in September of 2023 for Dr. Monty Miller. It's in the notice of registered action.
What's the name again?
Monty Miller. He actually testified during a motion hearing.
Your Honor, I would note that we have received information with regards to Dr. Miller. I wasn't aware that Dr. Miller was going to be on the defense's witness list.
Okay. All right. Anything else in Ms. Sorgan at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sand, I will address that in due course. Any other issues before I bring in the jury?
No, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Ms. Sorgan, you're prepared for your next witness?
We are, Your Honor. That will be Mr. Nelson's witness.
All right.
Okay.
Moving it forward.
How's your throat? Then come over here and have a seat in this chair. Once you've made yourself comfortable, we want you to adjust the mic so it's kind of aimed at your chin, and then make sure the light is on the base there. All right. You may proceed, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Robin Thompson.
And could you spell both your first and last name for us, please?
ROBYNTHOMPSON.
Okay. Now, where did you grow up, Ms. Thompson?
Velva, North Dakota,
Okay. What year did you graduate from Velva High School?
2006.
Okay. So you did, in 2006.
Correct.
Okay. Did you know both Nichole and Anita?
Yes.
How did you know them?
We went to school. I was friends with both of them.
You were friends with both the defendant and the victim in this case?
Correct.
Okay. Did you keep that friendship going after college? Or, excuse me, after high school?
I would say directly after high school, I was a little closer with Anita, but Nichole was still considered a friend, yes.
Okay. Did you hang out with Anita
Yes.
after high school?
Yes.
What would you do?
We would go to Club 101.
All right. What was that?
It was an 18 and up club in downtown Minot, North Dakota.
Okay. What would you do there?
We would dance and hang out and just have fun.
Okay. And what would you do after going to the Club 101?
We would either go back to Anita's apartment, or we had another mutual friend named Michelle. We would go to her house.
When you say Anita's apartment, was that the same apartment that she shared with the defendant?
Correct.
Okay. Was the defendant there when you were hanging out with her?
No.
Okay. Now, were you present for a get-together with a few other individuals that had gone to high school in Velva after the murder took place?
Yes.
Where did that get-together take place?
If I remember correctly, it was April Moulton's house.
Moulton being her last name at the time?
Yes, correct.
Okay. She's since married and has a different name.
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall if the defendant was there?
Not right away.
What do you mean by that?
I think she came later, but she was not there initially when we first all met up.
So she came later on?
Correct.
Do you recall anything that came about after she got there?
She was just talking about going to the apartment with the police.
Okay. So she was just talking about walking through the apartment with law enforcement, that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall Anita's funeral?
It's a little hazy. It was an emotional time, but yes.
Okay. Do you recall having a conversation with Nichole at or about that funeral?
Yes.
What was that conversation about?
It was later, a couple years later, but she was talking about a money mic, talking about the case at the funeral.
What do you mean exactly?
She implied that he was stating he had something
Objection,
to do with
hearsay, Your Honor, double hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, it's statements from the defendant.
Well, then rephrase it, please.
What did the defendant say to you about this money mic?
that he was talking about Anita.
Objection, Your Honor, double hearsay. Money Mike is the one making the statements to the defendant to...
This question is specific to what Ms. Rice said,
Okay.
so you can answer the question. What did Ms. Rice say to you?
That Money Mike was talking about committing the crime at the funeral.
Okay. So she told you that she heard someone confess to the murder.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if Nichole went to law enforcement with this information?
I do not.
Did you get together with Nichole at all after that point?
After the conversation about Money Mike,
Yes.
maybe a few more times.
Okay. Did anything of note take place in any of those get-togethers?
It was the same time we talked about Money Mike. We were getting ready in her room, and I noticed an item in her closet that belonged to Anita.
Do you remember what it was?
It was a stuffed toy.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination?
I do, sir. And I know there's been microphone issues here. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Robin, how you doing this morning?
Good.
Good. So you said that you and Anita would go to Club 101 together?
Correct.
Do you recall on June 5th, 2007, giving an interview to police?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall saying you were looking for males when you went to Club 101?
No.
If I show you the report, might that help you? The transcript of your interview?
Sure.
June 5th. Robin, take a look through here. Here's the question from the officer. Do you recall that now?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recall a time one incident at Club 101 where there was a guy that grabbed Anita and wouldn't let her go?
Yes.
And you guys tried to get away, but you couldn't, and you had to talk to the bouncers. He would not let her go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That you began to pull them away, but he was holding so close you couldn't do that.
Correct.
No further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Do you recall when that incident was?
Not exactly, but it would have been within a month's time of her murder.
Was it more than a week?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
That question was not asked.
It was
I'm-
more than a
stop,
week, yes.
Stop, please. I'm the one that gets to say that. Not asked and answered. You can answer the question if you can, ma'am.
It was more than a week.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, anything else?
Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you.
Is this witness hereby subpoena Mr. Nelson?
She is, Your Honor. She can be released.
Any objections, Mr. Sand?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may come and go as you please. Next witness, Mr. Nelson.
State calls Connie Euland.
There we go. Ms. Euland, I'll have you come up here, please, ma'am. Swear you an oath.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Then go ahead and have a seat over here, ma'am. Watch your steps. Once you get comfortable there, make sure the microphone is aimed at your chin, and then make sure the light is on the base. Okay? Ms. Sorgan?
Would you please state your name for the record?
My name's Connie Euland,
And would you please spell your last name?
Ulland.
Connie, where do you live?
I live in Georgetown, Texas,
Where'd you live originally?
in Minot.
You had a brother, is that right?
Yes,
And what was your brother's name?
Marty Annell.
Is Marty your younger or older brother?
He's younger.
Now, you're aware that Marty died January 1st, 2009, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And what were the circumstances of Marty's death?
he committed suicide in the garage.
Had you been close with your brother?
Well, we were 7 years apart, so he was always at family holidays or any get-togethers, and so you know, we were. He lived a different lifestyle than me.
Okay. Did you speak with each other frequently?
Yeah,
Did you have other family that lived near Minot around the time of Marty's death?
my mom.
Okay. And she lived near Minot?
She lived in Minot.
Okay. At the time Marty died?
No, she had moved to New Rockford at that time, so she was like the last remaining relative in Minot.
When did your mom move to New Rockford?
In March of 2008.
How far from Minot is New Rockford?
About 2 hours driving.
Where were you living at the time that Marty died?
I was living in Rochester, Minnesota.
And how far from Minot is that?
That is full day drive, 10, 12 hours.
And you said your mom was the last of the family that was living in Minot. Is that right?
Of the immediate family, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on in Marty's life in 2009 or late 2008, early 2009?
I really didn't know a whole lot. The thing that I knew was that Laura and Marty were having relationship problems, and it kind of came out when we were planning Marty's funeral, because when Laura came to the funeral home, she had this guy with her, and they just said it was like for support. And so then when the funeral was, he came again with her to the funeral. And then I finally said to somebody, do you know who this guy is? And she says, that's her boyfriend or her new, whoever she's going out with. And so I'm like, oh, poor Marty. He's losing, if they separate, he's losing his home, his job, and his girlfriend.
Now, why would he be losing all three of those things if they separated?
Because they both worked at the apartment complex. So they lived in an apartment there. That was his job. He was the maintenance man. And he would be losing his companion.
How long had Marty and Laura been together?
About 10 years.
Did you know Vern Olson?
Yes.
And how'd you know Vern?
He lived in our neighborhood, and Marty and Vern were lifelong friends.
How long had Laura and Marty lived together?
I can't answer that.
They'd been together for 10 years, I think you said.
Yes.
Did they live together most of the time or only part of it?
I would say, I'd say half of it, maybe.
Okay. What were holidays like in your family?
They were fun. We always, family got together. We had a nice time. Marty loved to cook. And so he had this big, I don't know what you call it, that you could barbecue in and whatever. And if he had the chance to cook for everybody, he was happy.
Were holidays important to Marty?
Yeah, he was always there. He did a great job of buying gifts. That's what's amazed me, because it's like, man, I don't do that job like that. And he's just went out and got great gifts for everybody.
Did your family get together in 2008 for the holidays?
No, because we were all scattered. There was just, at that point then, my mom would have been in New Rockford. I was in Rochester, Minnesota, and I had one sister up in Dallas and one in Seattle. And then my other brother, too, my youngest brother, was up in Dallas at the time also.
Was Marty a hunter?
Yes.
Okay. What did he hunt?
I know he did bow with turkeys, and I think he did deer hunting. That's all that and he liked to fish.
Okay. What do you know about Marty and alcohol?
He used alcohol.
Could you be a little more specific?
He probably drank too much.
Is there a family history of that?
Yes, we have a family history of alcoholism, and then there's been other suicides in our family. It kind of seems like it runs in our family line on my dad's side.
So there's a family history of suicide as well?
Yes.
Okay. Can you be a little more specific as to certain family members that have committed suicide?
The first one was in 2007. It was our niece, my sister Danette's child. She was bipolar, and she had tried several times, and then she was successful. So that was the first one. And then Marty was the second one. I think Marty just didn't know where to go, what to do, and it just was the final straw for him. So he committed suicide January 1st, 2009. And then my sister, she committed suicide. It was her daughter that committed the first suicide. And Danette was in such traumatic situation. She wasn't even functioning very well. She had a very, very good job, and she had to lose that, and she committed suicide too.
Now, the niece who committed suicide, what was her name?
Beth Bonagovsky.
And what was Marty's relationship like with Beth?
He was an uncle, and when we see each other, he'd like to always joke around with the kids or tease them a little bit.
Would you say they were close?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you ever talk to Marty about Beth's suicide?
No.
How long before Marty committed suicide did Beth die?
Well, the first suicide with Beth was 2007, and then he was 2009. So 2 years apart, about, give or take. And then Danette was in 2011. So it's every odd year for those 3 year time periods.
Was Marty concerned about losing his job?
I would think so. I mean, he was losing his everything. His home, his girlfriend, and his place where he's living. He was losing everything.
Okay. Did Marty have any lines up for a new job?
I'm not aware.
I have nothing further, Connie. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination? Sorry, ma'am. Oh, ma'am, you're not done. Thank you.
Thanks for staying, Connie.
You're welcome.
And thank you for coming up here today.
No problem.
Now, you did an interview. I want to make sure I got the date right, but it was back in 2022 with Detective Carmen Asham and Kelly Sigler from Cold Justice. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. I know it was a little bit ago, it was a couple of years ago, but do you remember the contents of that interview, what you guys talked about?
I didn't even know about this murder case, and so I was kind of shocked when I heard about it. And they just asked me about Marty. I just talked about things that, whatever she asked me, I can't remember all the specifics.
So you didn't even know about that there was a murder involved with Marty being there, first person on the scene?
No.
He never talked to you about it?
I never talked to Marty a whole lot. Because we were just different lives, lived in different areas.
So you weren't that close?
No. I was going to nursing school at the time, and then so I spent my time studying so I could get done with college, because I graduated from Minda State University when I was 50. So I was like, go to college, get out. So I spent a lot of time studying. I kind of lost my social life.
I hear you. So you didn't talk to Marty very much?
Not very much.
Do you recall in that interview telling Detective Asham that he was in jail for doing some drug deal or something like that?
I remember that. He was quite young at the time.
Okay. And I'm not trying to drag your brother through the mud. You understand that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is your interview, and I want to make sure we got it right.
Okay.
So on direct, you had told the state's attorney about his alcoholism issues.
He was never diagnosed, but I would tend to lead with our family genetics that he would be considered an alcoholic.
And according to your conversation with Cold Justice and Detective Asham, he had some drug dealing issues.
Only when he was young.
Okay.
Another thing, too, about...
You know, if I could, I just want to make sure you're answering the questions.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
not allowed to have you go on narrative, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Connie. Do you recall talking to Kelly Siegler at the end of the call from Cold Justice?
Yes.
Remember her asking you if they could use you in their documentary they were doing?
Yes.
Now, you talked about Laverne Olson on direct as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some testimony earlier about Laverne and his conversations with Marty. Were you close with Laverne?
I just always knew he grew up in the neighborhood where we lived, and they were just friends from young on. And I think that was probably his best friend.
Okay.
And he confided a lot in Vern.
If he was going to tell somebody something, it was Vern, it sounds like, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he had something heavy on his heart, he was going to tell Vern.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you. I don't mean to discount your relationship with him, but you had said you guys weren't very close anymore.
No, not really.
He hadn't even told you that a girl was murdered in the apartment building you worked at. And he was
No.
the first on the scene.
No.
Safe to say you don't like Laura Knapp very much.
I liked her because she was a great companion for him until when I found out at the funeral that this guy was.
She doesn't sound very trustworthy to you, does she?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Objection.
Your objection is what, Ms. Surratt?
Characterization.
Overruled.
Do you recall Kelly Siegler in the conversation?
Barely.
I'm sorry, I'm going to follow up. I'm going too slow for you. Do you recall her saying they were just calling you to try to clear your brother's name in this investigation?
Yes.
Yeah. She said, trying to call you to clear your brother's name. Is that right?
Is that what it says on the interview?
I can show it to you if that would help you a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is page 10 of the interview. This is the question. This is you. If you can just look at those two.
Okay, I read that. Yes, that
Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to clear your brother out of this investigation.
Is that an answer, ma'am?
Yes.
Sorry. The mic's got to hear it. That's the important thing. Connie, that's all I got. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
Oh, Connie, I just have some
Connie,
redirect.
please. Thank you.
Sorry, I know you're really eager to get going.
You have a flight to catch? Sorry.
No.
Ms. Sorgan, do you have any redirect, ma'am?
I do, Your Honor. Connie, Mr. Sand asked you about some drug deals when Marty was young, and you said, or at some point in time, you said that that was when he was real young, right?
Yeah, like probably late teens, early 20s.
How old was Marty when he died?
He was 46.
And then you also started saying something that you wanted to add, but you were cut off. What did you want to add?
What was I saying right before that?
You had been talking about that he being engaged in drug deals when he was quite young, or drug deal when he was quite young.
Yeah, and I know he served some time in the Ward County Jail. And he never dealt in drugs. And I mean, it was a big lesson learned for him. And so he never repeated it.
Okay. And it was just that incident when he was in, from the drug thing, is that when he went to jail?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nothing since then?
No.
All right. You and your family always got along real well with Laura, didn't you?
Yeah, she called my mom, and she was nice. She was great in Marty's life.
Okay. Marty loved her very much, didn't he?
I think so. He did. I mean, they were just tight as you always saw them together.
Okay. So what would losing her have done to him?
I think it would have crushed him.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Sand, anything else?
Sorry, Connie. Yeah, just one thing. The state was just asking you about what you know about his drug past and him being in jail. You had said when you were testifying with me that you didn't keep in very close contact with Marty as he got older. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I was busy raising my kids and activities, and
So
we're on different paths at our age.
right. So you knew about his drug dealing issues and drugs when he was younger, but as he got older, you don't know everything that was going on in his life. Isn't that fair to say?
No.
Okay, that's all I got, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Sorgan, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Is she here by subpoena?
Yes, she is.
Is she excused?
Yes, she is.
Mr. Sand, any objections?
No objections.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Now you may come and go as you please.
Thank you.
Your next witness, Ms. Sorgan.
State calls Brenda Glynns.
Have you come up here? She's going to swear you an oath, ma'am.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, I do.
I'll have you go over here to this chair. Please watch your steps. Once you're situated, make sure the mic is aimed at your chin, and make sure the light is on the base. Okay? Ms. Sorgan, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the record?
Brenda Lou Glinz,
And would you please spell your last name?
Glinz.
Brenda, do you know the defendant, Nichole Rice?
Yes, I do.
How do you know her?
She's my niece.
And how are you related to her specifically?
My brother Kevin is her father.
Okay. Now, Brenda, let's just get this out of the way. You're here pursuant to subpoena, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. You don't really want to be here, do you?
Not at all.
Okay. This is very difficult for you, isn't it?
Yes.
What was your relationship like with your niece?
We were very close for many, many years.
Okay.
She was like a daughter to me.
Did she used to refer to you in a particular way?
Sometimes she would call me her other mama.
Brenda, you went to family events and things like that where Nichole was present, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you were generally aware of what was going on in her life, is that right?
I was.
Did you go to her high school graduation?
I did.
And were you aware of what she did after high school?
Yes.
Okay, and what did she do?
She went to college. She worked at Vanity. I believe it was either Vanity or Maurice's. One of those. And then she went worked at Telecare, I believe.
Okay. Are you familiar with the period of time around which Anita Knutson was murdered?
I am.
Okay. What happened with Nichole shortly after that murder? Where was she living?
She shortly after made a move to New Mexico.
How shortly after?
I would say 4 to 6 weeks.
And did there come a time that you went to New Mexico yourself in that time period?
I did.
Okay. Why'd you go to New Mexico?
My son was in the National High School Rodeo Finals in Farmington, New Mexico. And I traveled there.
How
in
did you
support
travel
of
to
him.
New Mexico?
I traveled with my ex-husband and my kids, my 4 children.
And was Nichole living in New Mexico at that time?
Yes, she was.
Did you see her while you were there?
Yes, I did.
And how did that come about?
Her and the man that she went there for, things did not go as planned for her. And she reached out to me when I was in New Mexico. And she came and stayed with me in my hotel.
Okay. Then what happened?
After the national finals was closed and over, I traveled back to North Dakota with Nichole in her car, moved her back home.
And who else was there anybody else in the car besides the two of you?
No,
Approximately how long was the trip from New Mexico back to North Dakota?
probably 2 days.
And during that time, did the two of you talk?
Absolutely.
Did Nichole talk to you about Anita's murder during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what she told you?
She told me that there was a cut screen, and the person, whoever did this, cut the screen and was hiding in her bedroom, waiting for Anita to come out of the shower to make the attack.
Okay. Did she tell you anything else?
She said that it was so horrible. She said to just see Anita lying there, but she looked so peaceful, covered up
Did she say
with a
anything?
robe, and said that there was a bowl of water in the bathroom sink, that whoever did this washed themselves up and washed the knife up.
Okay. I think I stepped over some of your words there. You said that she said that Anita looked peaceful lying there in her robe.
Yes.
Okay. Did she say anything else to you? During that trip?
She was very upset that her iPod was gone, that the person, whoever did this, stole her iPod. She said that Anita was raped and stabbed, and there was no, but it appears to be no struggle.
Okay. Now, Brenda, you said that Nichole moved to New Mexico about 4 to 6 weeks after Anita was killed.
Correct.
And she had been in New Mexico approximately how long by the time that you had come to New Mexico for the rodeo finals?
Probably a couple weeks.
She wasn't in New Mexico very long, was she?
No, she was not.
So this was just a few months after Anita's murder, is that correct?
It would have actually been in July that I was in New Mexico for the national finals.
Okay. So you were in New Mexico in July. All right. Was there ever any further conversation after you brought Nichole back, or you came back with Nichole from New Mexico, with regards to Anita's murder in general, or Nichole's whereabouts that day in particular?
She said that she had no idea of anything, because she said that she was in Sykeston at her aunt's family gathering, and then she went to the 41 Club that night to work at her cousin's grand opening.
Did she tell you anything about where she went after the 41 Club?
She said she went home to get clothes.
And where did she say she went home to?
Went to her apartment after the 41 Club.
The apartment in
closed.
Minot.
The apartment in Minot.
And she told you this?
Yes, she did.
Was there ever any discussions with the family as a whole, with Nichole present, that you heard her saying things about the case?
The story's always changed. I
How
think
so?
throughout the whole 18 years of who it may be, or where she was, or that they got the person, or that she was cleared and that she didn't have to worry about it because there's no DNA of her anywhere, and that she was cleared of the scene.
Do you remember how Nichole reacted with regards to Anita's death?
She was not the way that most people would react to somebody that was your friend if they died.
How so?
She referred to her more than once as a fucking cunt and a fucking bitch. And the only thing that she cared about was that they stole her iPod.
Did Nichole ever say anything to you specifically about Anita deserving to die?
Yes.
What did she say?
She deserved to die. She was a fucking cunt.
I have no more questions for Brenda.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination?
Certainly do, sir. Brenda, you're Nichole's aunt,
I am.
and this is Nichole.
That is.
You recall doing some interviews with law enforcement as well as the Cold Justice Show.
I do.
Do you recall referring to Nichole's daughter Peyton as well?
I do.
Is that her in the courtroom over there?
Yes, it is.
So you remember talking to Detective Asham.
I do.
I'll just finish my question in a second here. You recall talking to Detective Asham in 2022?
I do.
Do you remember telling her you have memory loss?
Yes, it had been a long time. 2022 from 2007.
Like a physical issue that led to memory loss?
I've been diagnosed with autoimmune. And yes, memory loss can be part of it. But at that time,
That's all I need right there. I appreciate it. If I showed you a report, might that help you a little bit to remember what you said?
sure.
Okay. This is page 13 of your report. You can just kind of read down about halfway down the page.
I guess I'd like clarification, Mr. Sand. Is this a report or an interview?
It's a transcript of an interview between
Thank you.
Detective Asham and Ms. Glentz. Did you make it through that section?
I did. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now, do you recall saying you had some health issues and you have some memory loss?
Yes,
Okay. Have you ever had struggles with prescription drug abuse?
no, I have not.
Have you ever been to rehab for it?
I've been to rehab to help me through a seizure activity after breaking my back in 3 places.
Did you use any painkillers after that?
That is when they sent me to a rehab facility because I was having seizure activity.
Thank you. Did you meet with the state's attorney at all prior to giving this testimony?
I did.
When did you do that?
Last night.
Last night?
Yes.
Where do you live right now?
I have a home in Arizona and a home in Botno, North Dakota.
Did you come from Botno or Arizona?
Arizona.
Okay. And you met last night with the state's attorney's office, go over your testimony?
I did.
Okay. Have you been texting with anyone in the Thomas family over the last couple of weeks?
I have.
Who's that?
My family.
Nichole?
I text her, yes.
Have you texted her in the last few weeks?
I did.
Have you texted Gay, Nicole's mom?
I have.
Do you recall those texts?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you recall saying that things were taken out of text, which I assume is context, and used and stated in ways that were not actually said?
Throughout the years.
Okay. You recall saying it breaks my heart?
This.
Just asking you if you recall saying it breaks my heart.
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you aware in these interviews you've had with Detective Asham, you didn't say anything about Nichole saying Anita deserved to die? This is the first time we're hearing that. Are you aware of that?
Nichole did say Anita
But you
deserved
have
to die.
memory loss, correct? That's what you told the detective?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Do you know there's nothing in your interview with Detective Asham and Cold Justice about Nichole saying, or you saying that Nichole said Anita was lying peacefully in her bathrobe? That you never said that in your interview? Do you know that?
I do not recall.
Okay, thank you. recall saying in a text message that there were so many words and statements took out of context, and that's not even what I said, and it was misconstrued?
Was that a question?
Yeah, what if she remembers
Is that an answer?
Could you repeat that, please?
Do you recall in a text message over the last few weeks saying the statements were took out of context and not even what I said, as what I said in a sentence to finish out what I said, misconstrued, exclamation point?
To a certain statement.
Okay. So as this trial's been approaching, you've been texting Nichole and other people in her family these things.
It's been a while
How long?
before the hearing ever started. Probably 2 weeks before.
Last time you texted him was 2 weeks before this?
I recall. I could be off on my date,
You
but
could be off on your date.
possible.
And
She is
you
my
were-
niece, and it is my brother,
What does that have to do with the dates?
because they are my family. And this whole thing
Yeah.
has not only destroyed Knutson's, Nichole's life, my entire family, and the community. And this needs justice.
Okay.
It's time for the truth to be told.
Okay. Good. When's the last time you sent text messages to Nichole's family?
When my brother called me to tell me that you're going to be calling me to record me.
Did I call you to record you?
No, you did not.
Okay. And then so after that, you texted Nichole and you texted Nichole's mom.
Actually, not before that. I actually texted them before my brother called me and told me that.
Okay. But you didn't get a call from me.
Just to tell
You
them
and
I
have
love
never spoken
them.
Before, have we? This is the first time, right?
I've never spoke to you.
You said you live in Bottineau?
I do.
How far is Bottineau from Velva?
90 miles.
And then you live in Arizona as well. We're in Arizona.
Yes, Mesa.
Okay. How long have you lived in Bottineau?
Coming on 22 years.
So you've lived in Bottineau since about 2003?
Yes.
Do we have another question, Mr. Sand?
I know I'm taking a minute here, Your Honor. I'll know within about 10 seconds. That's all I have, Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sorgan, do you have any redirect, ma'am?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. Brenda, I'm going to take Mr. Sand's questions in order to address those, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, you were asked about memory issues, and you testified that you'd been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that can involve some memory loss. And then you started to say, but at the time, but then you were cut off. What do you mean?
It has been 5 years since I've been diagnosed with autoimmune. So when I was questioned back in 2007, 2008, I had a very clear memory, as well as I would say in 2022.
Okay. And then Mr. Sand intimated that you were in rehab for prescription drug abuse. Is that accurate?
No,
What were you in a rehab facility for?
I broke my back in 3 places. They put me on prescription pain medication. And when it was time to come off the prescription pain medication, my doctor, surgeon, was in Bismarck, North Dakota. I was in Botno, which is 3 hours. And when they started slowly taking me off of the pain medication, I would go into seizure activity. And this continued, and thankfully my husband is a pilot. He was able to get me to the Bismarck facility in time for them to be able to take care of me.
Okay. So you weren't abusing medications?
No.
All right. Mr. Sand asked you about text messages with the family, specifically that you had talked about, this breaks your heart.
Absolutely.
Why is this breaking your heart?
She's my niece. I love her.
Now, you had also been asked about text messages and things being taken out of context. You said that a certain statement had been taken out of context. What statement?
The statement about Gay teaching her to lie. As a young child.
All right. Now, you were also asked very specifically about certain statements not being in your interview in 2022 with Sergeant Asham. Was Sergeant Asham the only person who interviewed you?
No.
Okay. Do you recall some of the other officers who interviewed you?
Officer Goodman, Officer Max Meiser.
Meixner?
Yes, Meixner. Excuse me.
Do you specifically remember your interview with Agent Meixner?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Where did that occur?
At my house.
Brenda, have you ever given false information to the police?
No, I have not.
Now, while Mr. Sanders questioning you, it was very clear you're becoming very upset. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. And why is that?
Because my family has been torn completely apart over this. And truthfully, to believe that our family will never be a whole again because of this. And that breaks my heart because my family has been everything to me.
And you also said during your cross-examination that you believe this needs justice.
Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
Anita deserves to rest in peace. Her family, They deserve answers, each and every one of them. And they deserve to know the truth so that they can let their loved one go in peace.
Brenda, do you take the oath to tell the truth very seriously?
I do.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Sand, you recross?
Nothing from us, Your Honor.
All right. Is she here by subpoena, Ms.
She
Sorgan?
is, Your Honor.
She excused?
Yes, she is.
Mr. Sand, any objections?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may come and go as you please.
Thank you.
Do you have another witness, Ms. Sorgan?
Yes, Your Honor. State calls Mark Glynns.
You come right up here. This lady's going to swear you an oath, please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
And I'll have you take a seat over here at this chair. Once you're situated there, make sure the microphone is aimed at your chin and that the light is on the base.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Sorgan, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the record?
Mark Glynns.
And we've got the spelling as Glinz,
That's correct.
same as your wife, right?
Correct.
And Brenda is your wife, is that right?
Yes.
You're acquainted with the defendant, Nichole Rice, is that right?
Yes.
And how do you know her?
She's my wife's niece.
How long have you known Nichole?
It's quite a while.
Okay. How long have you and Brenda been married?
We got married July 5th, 2003.
Mark, do you recall a time that Brenda went to the National High School Rodeo finals, championship, nationals, something like that?
Yes, she went to New Mexico.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact title of what it was. Do you remember when that was?
July, August, somewhere in there.
Okay. Of what year?
That I don't remember.
And do you recall how she came back from that trip?
She rode back with Nichole.
Okay. So this would have been after Nichole moved to New Mexico, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you weren't along on that trip as well, is that right?
I stayed back home. I was working yet. And Brenda went down with her kids to the rodeo.
Okay. Following the return trip back from New Mexico, was there a time when the family was together and you were in the presence of Nichole?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what occurred at that occasion?
Pardon me?
Do you recall what occurred then?
I think we were at a birthday party
Okay. Birthday party for who?
for Leo,
And who is Leo?
Brenda's dad.
So this would be Nicole's grandfather, is that right?
Correct.
All right. And do you know when his birthday is?
I did know it, but I forgot it.
Does September sound right?
That sounds right.
And what happened at that birthday party?
We were just in the garage socializing, and just seemed like Nichole was a little disengaged.
Did anybody try to engage her in conversation?
One of the kids did, and I know that she said everything was great and fine and there's no problems.
Did Nichole say anything about Anita at that point?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. If I showed you some notes from a statement, would that refresh your recollection?
Probably would.
Okay. Permission to approach, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, may I ask what kind of statement this is? It's not a transcript. An interview of who?
Get your answer.
I'm still not familiar with what it is. It doesn't seem to be a report or a transcript. It's handwritten notes. I'd like to approach, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Sorgan.
We're only a few seconds behind, but I'll see if I can skip over any of this.
Mark, did that refresh your recollection?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Do you recall if Nichole stated anything with regards to Anita at that gathering?
Yeah, she stated to the kids that she didn't like Anita anyway.
Mark, do you have any recollection with regards to issues involving an iPod and Nichole?
I know that it was mentioned that her iPod got stolen.
And was that news to you?
At the time it was.
Okay. And why did that strike you at the time?
It seemed like that was the only thing she was concerned about.
Do you recall any other statements that Nichole made with regards to Anita's murder?
She said that the screen was cut on the house window or the apartment.
Anything else you can recall?
That there was a bowl in the sink.
Okay. And is there anything else that sticks out in your memory with regards to Nichole discussing Anita's death?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you see Nichole shortly after Anita's death on June 5th? Or sorry, June 4th? Or after?
Objection, leading
I'm
it
so
up.
sorry. I'm trying to orient as to time.
Objection is sustained.
Thank you. Mark, I'm going to draw your attention to shortly after the time that Anita's body was discovered, June 4th. Do you have any recollection of seeing Nichole on or around that time?
I don't know if I got the timeline right, but I believe it was before that.
Okay. And what do you recall?
I believe it was that Sunday. My wife was at Velva at the farm with her kids. And then I went down to the Scenic station in Velva to pick her up. And so I waited there, and if you know the parking lot, I pulled into the parking lot and parked looking south at the cement wall, and I said, I'm not going to do that while I'm waiting here. So I backed up, turned around, and I backed in the parking lot so I could look north and see the traffic and just everything that was going on. And I remember that as I was waiting there, and I don't remember the time exactly, but I seen Nichole and Gay come in. They went into Senex and grabbed some supplies or some drinks. And then they were in a hurry. They had something going on. So they got back in the car, and there was a semi. Now I remember there was a semi pulling out of the west approach. And they wanted to get by them. So she pulled up on the grass to get by them, and she couldn't make the ditch bank. So she backed up and drove out the east approach towards away from Minot. So that was the first time I seen him, and it wasn't 30 seconds, maybe a minute later, I seen him going back into Minot. Didn't think nothing of it. And then it was probably another minute or 2 minutes, and they were going back the other way. And that's when I seen Nichole in the car, kick back in the seat, and that's the last I seen of him. And I thought I seen him 3 times within 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Now, Mark, you're here under subpoena, is that right?
That's correct.
What has this whole situation done to your family?
It separated us.
How so?
Just with everything going on between the family and Brenda and her brother, and just this whole situation.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Sand, any cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Now, Mark, you came up from Arizona to be here today?
I did.
Mesa?
Mesa.
When'd you guys fly in?
We flew in Sunday night.
Okay. Did you meet with the state's attorney prior to testifying today?
Yes.
When was that?
I just need to refresh my memory.
No, when was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, that was last night.
Okay. Where'd you guys meet?
Just at our hotel.
At the hotel?
Yes.
Here in Grand Forks?
Yes.
Now, I suppose you recall doing an interview with Detective Asham and the Cold Justice people. Do you recall that?
It was a phone conversation, yes.
Yeah, back in 2022?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall discussing the Senex conversation you just had with Ms. Sorgan, the state's attorney? I have the transcript here. So
Yeah, I'd have to see it.
sure. Specifically, do you recall saying you didn't know if it was Gay's car or Nicole's car?
I did not remember at the time.
At the time of the interview, you didn't remember whose car it was?
No.
But you remember the exact amount of times you saw the car, right?
Yes, I do.
And this was all in Velva, right?
Yes, all at the
Because
farm.
you said going back to Minot, you're talking about directions on the highway. Is that
Yes, correct.
right? You don't actually think they went to Minot and back in the couple minutes you saw them?
No,
How
definitely
far
not.
is Velva from Minot?
It's half an hour.
Okay.
20 minutes, half hour. Depends on how fast you
So
drive.
you saw Gay and you saw Nicole at Senex.
Yes.
Is Senex the C-store in Velva?
Yes.
That's where you get your stuff.
Yes.
And you saw him 3 times in 5 or 6 minutes around the Senex.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall saying that this was around Thanksgiving? You talked to him.
Yeah, I had my dates mixed up.
You're saying now it was a Sunday in June.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that November in North Dakota is a lot different than June?
Yes.
And obviously, we just had your wife on the stand here. It sounds like you guys live in Bottineau. That's a full-time spot?
Yes.
Okay. And then Mesa's your winter spot?
Yes.
Okay. When do you guys go to Mesa?
All depends when we get done harvesting.
Okay.
A farmer.
Yep. When do you get back from Mesa?
I usually come back April 1st, and she stays till the middle of May,
Okay.
or first week in May.
Now, when the state was asking you about this birthday party for Leo, you couldn't remember anything significant, correct, until they came up and showed you some notes?
Until I was refresh my memory.
Okay. Were those your notes?
They were sergeant's notes or somebody's notes that we talked to.
Okay. Now, you also talked about some things with Nichole regarding like the screen at the apartment and everything.
Yes.
Anita's death was a pretty significant moment in your family's life, wouldn't you say that?
Yes.
Were there conversations about it between you and Brenda, between you and other people, between Nichole and you guys?
Brenda and I talked about it, yes.
Obviously, Nichole and you guys talked about it.
Yes.
Is that the only thing you guys ever talked about, was the screen? Or were there conversations? It sounds like it was coming up all the time, isn't that true? You're at a birthday party, it's coming up, isn't that true?
Yes, it was occasionally.
Okay. I mean, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's correct that you said it came up with the kids at the birthday party for Leo, correct?
Yes, the kids asked him how she was doing.
So this is a topic of conversation.
Yes.
And it's true that on the questions the state's asking you, they're just pulling out little chunks they want to know. Some about an iPod, some about a screen. Right?
Objection.
What's the objection?
Characterization.
Overruled.
Some about an iPod, some about a screen, just little things they're asking about.
Yes.
But these were conversations that your family had over the years. I mean, you're testifying they're being talked about at birthday parties, correct?
Yes.
And that birthday party, I know you couldn't remember, but I think the state so kindly helped you recall it was in September, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But they're just asking you bits and pieces of little parts of questions, correct?
Yes.
Now, you had testified earlier about Nichole being in New Mexico, right?
Yes.
Your wife testified in here before. You're aware she was down there with a boyfriend, correct?
Nichole, yes, she followed a
That's
guy.
all I'm really asking, sir.
Yes.
I'm doing this to everybody. I'm not trying to cut you off.
Yeah.
I just need
Yeah.
want to make sure I get the questions answered that I ask.
Please let him answer it, though.
I will, sir. I'll let you expand. I'm sorry to cut you off. The judge wants me to let you expand.
Just, she went down there with a boyfriend, and
With the
And-
boyfriend?
she went down. There was a guy down there that she went down to see,
Okay.
and it didn't turn out, so she came back home.
So she went down there for a guy in New Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't a guy from North Dakota she went down there with?
No.
Okay. No further questions, Mark. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Sorgan,
Yes, just briefly.
redirect.
Mark, you were just asked about Nichole going to New Mexico to be with a boyfriend. Do you recall approximately how long she was gone to New Mexico?
I don't recall, but it wasn't very long.
In fact, you testified that Brenda went to the rodeo in July, right?
Yeah, she went down, yes, in July.
Okay. And to your knowledge, what city and state was Nichole living in early June of 2007?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know if she was living in the apartment in Minot?
Objection, Your Honor, she's leading them.
Sustained.
Okay. Now, Mark, you had testified as well on cross. You were asked about that you kind of mixed up your dates a little bit about seeing Nichole and Gay at the Cenex, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that was in a 2022 interview, is that right?
That's correct.
You'd given other interviews to law enforcement in the past, hadn't you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how many times you had talked to law enforcement previously?
I don't remember.
And at the time that you spoke with law enforcement originally about the incident where you saw her at the Cenex, was that closer in time to the incident or further in time to 2022?
You want to restate that?
Yeah, that was a bad question. Okay. So at the time that you first spoke with law enforcement about having seen Nichole and Gay at the Cenex, how long after that incident would you say that was that you spoke with law enforcement?
I'd say it'd been a week, within a week to 2 weeks.
So it's pretty close in time.
Yes.
I have no more questions.
Mr. Sand, any last recross?
No, we've talked to Mr. Glenns as much as we need. Thank you, sir.
All right. Is he here by subpoena, Ms. Sorgan?
He is, Your Honor.
Is he excused?
Yes, he is.
Mr. Sand, any objection?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. You may come and go as you please. Watch your steps. Ms. Sorgan, you had 4 witnesses for this morning in addition to Sergeant. So do you have one more?
Sergeant Asham is our last witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Then we're going to take a break. It's 10 o'clock. Be in recess for 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I know you've all just been anticipating me saying this to you again. Had a whole weekend.
Well, out of all the days that I have watched of this trial, this one has definitely been the most interesting with her aunt taking the stand. So that might be something that I will play later in a different video and talk about the different things that were said. But yeah, definitely very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and go get more coffee and I'll be back. If you were reading the chat or if you have figured out Monica Cementelli trial is not going to be back on until next week, or at least that's what they say. They said no Friday and then they had it Friday, so maybe we'll luck out and they'll do something like that. But if not, next Monday we will be back for that. I'll be back. So, depending on what is going on with this trial once it hits lunchtime for them, I am putting together Monica Sementelli transcripts with the phone calls that we got to listen to, all of the jail audio calls. Some of them were basically impossible to hear. So I'm putting that together, and we may start that today. I'm just going to keep watching and see what this trial does. If it's moving super slow, maybe we'll switch to that, do Monica this afternoon. But yeah, we're going to start getting into all of the evidence and transcripts and things that we could catch up on and actually be able to learn more about and actually hear things. And I think that's a good time to do it now that they're on a week-long break. We were going to do it when the jury was deliberating, but we have a week now, so might as well get it done. So that is the plan. I would assume I'm going to start that this afternoon. If this trial gets very crazy and like we need to keep following along for today, we'll do that, and then we'll pick it up, Monica stuff, probably starting tomorrow. But I'd plan on this afternoon. I really want to get into that. A lot of us are very curious about the different things, and a lot of us aren't happy that we have to now wait a week for them to come back, especially with how long it's been, 35 days. So, yeah. I'm excited at least to have a little bit more information while we have to sit and wait. And I saw their camera move, so this is pretty good time. They should be coming back in just a minute.
Okay, Colette. North Central Judicial District is again back on the record. The time is 18 minutes after 10 o'clock. We're still on Monday, March 24th, 2025. We are in day 5 of the trial, day 6 if you include the first day of jury selection. The parties are present along with counsel. We took a short break between witnesses. The jury is not present. The plan was to call them back in for I believe the state has their last witness, Sergeant Asham. But prior to that, the defense has made a motion under Rule 615 of the North Dakota Rules of Evidence to allow their expert, someone by the name of Coons, to be present during Sergeant Asham's testimony. There was originally at the beginning of the trial a sequestration order given by the court, so people who have not testified are not allowed to be in here prior to their testimony, be in the courtroom prior to their testimony, so it doesn't influence, previous testimony doesn't influence their testimony. There is an exception to that under Rule 615, based on the defendant, in this case, making a presentation to the court that it's essential that their expert be present during the testimony of the state's witness, the case agent in this case. Ms. Sorgan, do you have any objection to their request?
The rule says what the rule says, Your Honor. No.
All right. Again, I think I am required, however, Mr. Sand, to have you put on for the record the reason why why it is essential to your claim or your defense that this party be present.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Collins has been hired as a criminal investigation expert by the defense. He's gone through the entire record. He will be, Ms. Rice has the right to present the defense. He's essential to the defense because he is going to testify regarding law enforcement's investigation in this case. Pretty much, he's gone through the entire discovery packet as far as the criminal investigation of Ms. Rice goes, and it's our anticipation that Case Agent Asham is going to be testifying to exactly that.
All right. Thank you. What I would also, for the record, just make clear is Rule 615, North Dakota Rules of Evidence, has been changed as of March 1st of this year. I believe there was legislature that changed it, or somebody changed it, and then it was adopted and is in place as of March 1st. The court reviewed actually the old rule and the new rule. The portion that you're citing earlier, Mr. Sand, A3, that is almost exactly word for word as it was in the old rule, so that has not changed in a sense. And the court does at this time find that you are making the case that this witness is essential to be in the courtroom during Sergeant Asham's testimony. The court will grant your request. And again, can you spell the witness's name again?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to make sure I got it right here. Name is James, James. Middle name Douglas, Douglas. Last name Coons, Kouns.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Witness Coons will be allowed to be in here during Sergeant Asham's testimony. Anything else with regard to that motion then, Mr. Sand?
No, Your Honor. Just for the record, Mr. Coons has now entered the courtroom.
Okay. Ms. Sorgan, anything else with regard to that motion?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then granted. Anything else in before I bring the jury back in, Ms. Sorgan?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, anything else before I bring the jury in?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Bring in the jury, please. No, my fault. I gave you 15 minutes and then I took it back.
This should be the last witness before they go on to their lunch break.
Seat. All right, Ms. Sorgan, do you waive roll call of the jury?
State waives roll call, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you waive roll call of the jury?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mrs. Sorgan, please call your next witness.
State calls Sergeant Carmen Asham.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You may proceed, Ms. Sorgan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the record?
Carmen Asham,
And please spell your first and last name.
Carmenasham.
You are the state's case agent in this matter, is that correct?
Correct.
Where are you employed?
City of Minot Police Department.
In what capacity?
Currently, I'm a sergeant in the Investigations Division
How long have you held the rank of sergeant?
since June of 2023.
And prior to that, what was your rank?
Master Officer.
You said your current assignment is investigations, is that right?
Correct.
How long have you been in investigations?
This time since the end of January 2025.
And prior to that, what was your assignment?
I was a patrol sergeant
And how long were you a patrol sergeant?
from the fall of 2023 to January 2025.
And where were you prior to patrol?
Prior to that patrol sergeant position, I was in investigations as a detective.
And how long had you been in investigations at that point?
That time I was in investigations for 5 years, from 2018 to 2023.
Now, it sounds like a lot of bouncing around. Can you explain why you went from investigations to patrol back to investigations?
So in our department, we are limited to certain number of ranking officers in specific divisions. So in particular, in investigations, we only have 2 sergeant positions. So there can only be 2 sergeants assigned to investigations at any time.
Okay. So when you attained the rank of sergeant, you had to transfer out
Correct.
because the spots had already been filled. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so it's come to the time that you have now transferred back to investigations.
Yes.
Okay. Can you please tell us about your training and experience?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree from Minot State University, and then law enforcement specific. I have over 1,800 hours of peace officer standards training through the state of North Dakota. Over 300 of those hours are specific to evidence and crime scene collection, or crime scene investigation, excuse me.
Okay. Do you have any affiliation with the crime scene recovery unit with Minot PD?
Yes, we have a crime scene response unit with the Minot Police Department. I've been a member of that team since 2013, and I've been the commander of the crime scene response unit since 2016.
What kind of cases do you usually investigate?
Any type of case. We don't really have specific assignments in our division, so I can investigate anything from a sexual assault to, fraud, theft, homicide.
Approximately how many homicides have you investigated during your career?
I've been the lead detective on, I believe, 3 homicides, and then I've been involved in anywhere to 5 to 8 additional that I've been involved in as the crime scene unit.
Okay. You were assigned as an investigator on this case, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. When did you receive that assignment?
The first assignment was in 2019 in the fall. Detective Talbot and I were tasked with familiarizing ourselves with the case.
And what did familiarizing yourselves with the case entail?
So we were able to, at that time, take a break from our regular caseload so we could concentrate on this case because there's such a vast array of documents and evidence to review for this case. So what we did was we read through as much as we could. We spent some time trying to make sure we knew where all of the evidence was located. We learned that some of the evidence was still being stored down at the State Crime Lab in Bismarck, so we made arrangements to get that transferred back to the Minot Police Department. And then we worked with our evidence tech to go through and make sure all of the evidence was properly logged into our computer system because at the time, you could imagine in 2007, 2008, there really wasn't much digital happening as far as the case went. So everything was analog. So we had to make sure that in the interim over the years that evidence had properly been documented into our computer system.
And what did you find when you went to do making sure that everything was logged properly into evidence?
It was a challenge. There was a lot of stuff that we couldn't find. We went through and noticed we had several reports from BCI, for example, but we had no corresponding audio for any of those reports if they did interviews for us. So we had to try and track down as much of it as we could.
Okay. Approximately how many pages of documents did you go through?
I couldn't even say. There was thousands of pages.
Okay. How many hours approximately of audio and video recordings?
Hundreds of hours.
Photographs?
Yes. There were, I don't even know, 100 or so maybe.
Okay. Now, Detective, when you go through an investigation, you review the evidence, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I want to kind of draw your attention to certain pieces of evidence in this case and then discuss these. We've heard testimony that Anita was stabbed and that a knife was recovered from the scene, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is the knife in evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please describe the knife?
I would describe it as a cheap folding knife, something that is common for a lot of people to carry. It had a embossed design on the handle on both sides.
During your course of your investigation, were you able to determine how common of a knife this was?
So we had done some research and reviewed. It was, I mean, a quick Google search and you could find it was easy to come across online. It sounded like it was kind of a novelty knife that would have been possibly sold in gas stations or maybe flea markets, that type of thing. We also found that there were a wide variety of styles of the knife from the same manufacturer.
Okay. And were you able to determine if there's anything really special of this knife or if this was a good quality knife?
No, it wasn't particularly expensive or unique in any way.
And to be clear, when I say the knife is in evidence, it's being housed at Minot PD, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And where in Minot PD is it being housed?
Our evidence storage is in it's a secured, fenced-in area, I guess, in our garage bay, that it's fully secured and only accessible by the evidence clerk.
Okay. Is it monitored by cameras? And
Yes.
okay. We've also heard some testimony about the screen During the course of your investigation, what did you learn about where the screen was originally on the morning of June 4th, 2007?
We learned that Marty Annell, in his statements, he had said specifically.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we've heard numerous testimony about this already.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little leeway here, Mr. Sand,
Okay.
so your objection's overruled. Try to keep it tight, Ms. Sorgan.
Yes, Your Honor.
He stated that the screen was recovered out of the window of the apartment.
Now, Sergeant Ashton, you're familiar with the crime scene video for this, of the apartment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You've watched that?
Yes.
You were in court when that was viewed as well?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also familiar with the crime scene photographs, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you describe the condition of Anita's bedroom, particularly with regards to the area around the window?
Yeah. It was a particularly small room. I mean, the apartment itself was pretty small. Her bedroom was maybe 9 feet by 10 feet, approximately. She had her single bed in the corner, which was in the southwest corner of the room. The end of the bed came up right up to the edge of the window in question. And then you could see in the photographs from the crime scene that at the foot of the bed, underneath the window, there was a lot of items piled up there. There was a couple of fabric bins, you know, those square bins that you store things in, that were there. There was, you know, maybe a laundry basket. There was just several things there. And then on top of all of that, there was a open package of plasticware, forks, knives, that sort of stuff that was just kind of precariously perched on top of one of the fabric bins. So all of this stuff was just on the floor at the foot of the bed, right underneath the window.
Okay. And how would you describe it in its position on the floor?
It was kind of a jumbled mess. You could see clearly defined things like the bins, like I said, and the plasticware, but then there was just other things just strewn about there.
Okay. Did it appear to you to have been stacked, or was it just kind of tossed there?
A lot of the things were just stacked on top of one another.
Okay. Now, you also examined photographs of the windowsill, is that right?
Yes.
Please describe the condition of the windowsill.
The windowsill was unremarkable. There was no tool marks, no damage noted. There was no, there was dust in the window. There was cobwebs around it. Pretty unremarkable.
Okay. Dust and cobwebs, particularly where?
Outside of the window on the, where the siding was.
Now, Detective, you also had an opportunity to review the video of the reenactment, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to see the damage to the screen that was caused in the test, on the test screen in that video?
No.
Okay. How would you compare the screen from the test video with the actual screen that we saw in the photographs that were provided?
Your Honor, my understanding, she just said no, and I don't understand the follow-up question.
Ms. Sorgan.
I'm going to back up a little bit then. Reestablish there. Okay. Sergeant Ashton, you were able to observe the screen in that video, correct?
Yes.
All right. And were you able to see the condition of it from that video?
Yes.
Okay. Did you then compare the condition of that screen to what you saw in the photographs of the screen that was actually provided by Marty Annell?
Yes.
Okay. How do the two compare?
The actual screen from the crime scene was more damaged than the screen from the reenactment video.
Okay. And what did that tell you?
That, to me, the damage was most likely not from the same activity that was portrayed in the reenactment video.
Okay. And you saw Sergeant Thompson trying to get in and out of that window, correctly?
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe his actions in getting in and out of that window?
Clumsy.
Did you have an opportunity to observe the actual screen?
Yes.
Okay. What was your understanding of the cut to that screen?
The understanding to me, and as it was described, is the cut was the shape of a backwards L if you were standing outside the window looking in.
Okay. What, if anything, was in that cut?
Reports from the state lab after that was sent to them indicated that Anita's blood was found in the cut of that screen.
What does that indicate to you?
To me, that tells me that that cut was made after the stabbing.
Okay. And what does that tell you about the point of entry?
That was not the point of entry to the apartment.
What did your investigation determine was the point of entry?
The door, the front door.
Okay. And you were present for Laura Knapp's testimony with regards to the keys, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And the type of lock that was?
Yes.
During the course of your investigation, were you able to determine who had keys to that apartment?
Yes.
Who?
Anita had a key, Nichole had a key, Laura Knapp had a key, and Marty and Al had a key.
And were Laura and Marty's keys accounted for, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, they were, yes.
Okay. How about Anita's keys?
Yes, they were in her purse.
Okay. Is there some indication of what happened with Anita's keys?
Yeah, on the evidence log, the purse was collected as evidence, and then in the chain of custody, it notates that approximately a week to 10 days after the crime, the keys were returned to Gordon Knutson by Detective Barnard.
Did you do some investigation with regards to whether or not it was possible for someone to have duplicated the key?
Yes.
And what did you learn through the course of that investigation?
So we're probably all familiar now that kiosks exist where you can take a key and get your own copy made. So I was curious if that was a possibility in 2007. And I learned that it was not, that those machines were not patented until 2007, and they didn't have a nationwide rollout of the machines until 2010.
Sergeant Asham, in your review of the case, were you able to determine if there were any indications of a robbery?
There were not.
Okay. In fact, Sergeant, you were present for Sergeant Goodman's testimony, correct?
Correct.
Okay. His indication there didn't seem to have been some kind of a struggle?
Objection, leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Sergeant Asham, were you able to determine if there had been any indications of a sexual assault?
According to the autopsy report, no, there was no indication of sexual assault.
Now, a lot of what you poured over in review was reports of past officers, is that right?
Correct.
Do you know approximately how many people they interviewed?
Hundreds of people were interviewed.
What other investigative tools did officers use?
In addition to the interviews they did, they took DNA samples from many of the people.
Okay. Approximately how many people did they take DNA samples from?
Around 60. I know it was over 50.
And do you know if the crime scene was dusted for fingerprints?
Yes.
Okay. So particularly in what areas?
From the photos, I saw that the window, around the window, was dusted for fingerprints.
Okay. Were there any usable prints to your knowledge?
There were not.
Okay. Now, Sergeant, as part of this investigation as well, you also reviewed Anita's phone records, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that was mostly from an analysis of her phone, is that right?
Correct. We had her actual phone, which was recovered at the scene, and there were photographs taken of text messages, incoming, outgoing, phone logs, and then we also had copies of phone bills, which at the time actually also listed call logs.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Me up, Ms. Hoslin? You got me? Okay, great. Sergeant, I need to refer to my notes so that I make sure that I've got the right information here. Okay. Sergeant, showing you what's been received into evidence as States Exhibits 11A and 11B. What are these?
These are photos taken from Anita's phone of her text messages.
Okay. And going through her phone, what were you able to determine was the last text message that she sent?
That would be this one marked 11A, where she sent a text message that said, "I didn't know what to say to it."
And do you know what time that was sent?
That was sent at, I believe it was 4:49 a.m. or about that time on Sunday, June 3rd.
Okay. What is 11B?
11B is a message that she received that was received at 4:53 a.m. That in her phone it showed as unread, and it's a message that just said, "You don't say anything."
Okay. Had all of her prior text messages been read before that point?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the first unread message?
Yes.
How would you describe Anita's text activity in the early morning hours of June 3rd, 2007?
It was consistent. There were no gaps. It seemed to be on par with other days of text messages that were on there. It was a consistent conversation she was having until up to that point.
Okay. Sergeant, did you also analyze or look at Anita's phone activity, her actual verbal communications on the phone?
Yes.
And what did you find?
I saw that she had a phone conversation that lasted 10 or 11 minutes, just a little bit before 2 a.m. on Sunday, June 3rd.
Okay. And did you contact the person with whom that phone call occurred?
I did have contact with that person, and he had also been interviewed previously in 2007.
Okay. And what did you learn from police making contact with that person?
So that individual was Ryan Ackland, who was her California boyfriend that her family had testified about earlier, and he had confirmed that he had spoken with her.
Did you learn whether or not he recognized her voice?
Yes, it appeared to be.
Okay. Now, we've also heard testimony that Minot PD involved the FBI. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. And how is it that you were familiar with that?
Initially, the only information I had regarding any FBI involvement, there was a VICAP report attached to the case, which is an FBI division, the Violent Criminal Apprehension. But then in, I think it was August of 2022, a local FBI agent reached out to me to let me know that Mr. Becker, who had been Ms. Rice's attorney at that time, had reached out to them looking for some possible reports from the FBI involving the BAU, or the Behavioral Analysis Unit. He said they didn't have any BAU reports, but they did have some FBI reports, and I asked if he would please send those to me because we did not have them as part of the case file.
Okay. And so what did you learn from receiving those reports?
From those reports, it really was mostly they had conducted some follow-up interviews to assist the Minot Police Department. There was a letter in there where Detective Barnard had requested some assistance, giving them a brief synopsis of the case.
Okay. And what was the time frame for that letter from Detective Barnard?
I believe the letter for that request for assistance was in 2009.
Okay. And how about the interviews that the FBI assisted with? What was the time frame for those?
Those were conducted in 2008 or 2009.
So fair to say early in the investigation.
Yes.
Sergeant, you were present for the testimony of William May and Christina Imhoff, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that there's no records of the statements from them, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What did you learn about why there was no statements?
I really don't know why there's no statements. It would appear there was a breakdown in communication somewhere.
Okay. Were you with the PD at that point in time that those statements were made by those two?
No.
Okay. Now, to be clear, were there no statements or were there no records?
No records that they had contacted the police department.
And I think we've already established, you'd said previously that there were some other items that have been missing from the original case files, all right?
Correct.
Such as?
Audio recordings of interviews.
Okay. That were conducted by BCI and?
Correct.
Other agencies, okay. Now, Sergeant, you had also alluded to lots of DNA had been collected, samples had been collected from various people, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And why was that?
The investigators were just doing their due diligence and trying to check off all the boxes that they came across in their investigation.
All right. Now, you were present for Amy Gebhardt's testimony, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you were present when Mr. Sand was asking her about male-specific DNA under Anita's fingernail, one of her fingernails on her right hand?
Correct.
Okay. What's your understanding about whether or not there's a timestamp on DNA?
There is no timestamp on DNA.
Sergeant, what are investigative holdbacks?
Those are items that are particular to the case that are not released to the public.
Okay. And why is that done?
To ensure the integrity of the investigation. So if somebody comes forward at a later point that may have some information, you can verify if that is information that they knew independently or if it was something that they learned from the public.
Okay. Was the fact that Anita had been stabbed an investigative holdback?
No.
What were the investigative holdbacks in this case?
From what I was able to see in any of the media releases that I read, they did not release the fact that the screen was cut. And I don't believe they released the exact time that she was believed to have been stabbed.
Was any information released with regards to the condition or position of the body?
No.
How about any information with regards to the scene itself?
No.
Okay. How about how Anita was dressed?
No.
Not released.
Not released.
Now, Detective, Sergeant, you were able to go through Anita's text message history, correct?
Correct.
Who had she been texting with shortly before her death?
Michael Van.
Okay. Is that the individual known as Money Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And generally, what was the content of those conversations?
It was just kind of a friend relationship. I think they kind of were talking about, maybe moving beyond friendship, but nothing really intimate.
Did he and Anita exchange what they were doing at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay. And what did she say that she had been doing?
She had made mention that she was feeling ill, and she was either going to take a bath or a shower to maybe feel better.
Okay. And was there any kind of physical evidence that Anita had taken a shower?
No.
Okay. So that was pieced together from text messages, is that right?
Correct, yes.
Now, Sergeant, I know there's been a lot of talk about cold justice.
Yes.
You were assigned to this case before cold justice came on, is that correct?
Correct.
Whose idea was it to bring in cold justice?
I have no exact knowledge. It was someone in administration, not me. I would assume it was a captain or a chief.
Someone above your pay grade, right?
Correct.
All right. What did you get told with regards to working with cold justice?
That they were going to bring them in to assist with this case and that I was going to help them.
Okay. And what kind of resources did cold justice provide?
They were able to provide, additional personnel to help us conduct all these interviews that needed to be done, and really just to help us find people that had moved on or were no longer around.
Who particularly from cold justice did you work with?
Mostly I work with Kelly Sigler, a little bit with Steve Spingola, but mostly with Kelly.
Okay. And to your knowledge, what was Steve Spingola's occupation?
He was a retired lieutenant from the Milwaukee Police Department.
Okay. Do you know what unit he was with?
From what I understand, he had spent time in multiple units, but he had also spent a lot of time in a homicide unit.
When did cold justice come to Minot?
In March of 2022.
How long were they there?
I think around 10 days.
And what was the purpose of them coming to town?
To film for their show.
Okay. To your knowledge, had they had access to the case file before they came to town?
Yes, they were given the entire case file prior to coming to Minot.
Okay. Do you know approximately how far in advance they were given that?
I don't. I believe it was maybe January of 2022, but I really don't know the exact date.
So quite likely a couple of months.
Yes.
Now we heard Detective Talbot testify with regards to cold justice having a list of people to interview.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that more?
Yes. So when they came, they had researched the case file and they had a list of individuals who they thought should possibly be re-interviewed. We went through that list with them, and we gave them our input. There was a couple of people that we crossed off the list because we didn't think they were relevant. I know there was at least one person they had on the list that we knew to be deceased and we're not going to be able to re-interview.
So you had some input into the re-interviewing, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Was cold justice calling the shots?
No.
Now, as particularly with regards to homicide investigations, you review the evidence, then what step do you take?
You have to, it's like a puzzle. You have to go through all of the pieces that you're given and figure out how they fit together and what is extraneous information that doesn't fit into the puzzle.
Okay. And that happens, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Minot PD, did you receive a number of false leads?
Yes.
Quite a few, in fact.
Yes.
Did you review all of those again?
We reviewed them as much as we could. The ones that we believe may have needed more follow-up.
Okay. Were those followed up initially in the initial investigation from what you could review?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Were persons of interest identified in this case?
Yes.
All right. Could you please tell us who those persons of interest were?
Excuse me. They had identified Marty Annell as a person of interest, Nichole Rice, or Thomas at the time, as a person of interest. They thought Tyler Schmaltz was a person of interest. They thought Michael Van was a person of interest. There were multiple.
Okay. I'd like to go through these people one by one. Actually, first off, let me ask, what is a person of interest?
A person of interest is just someone that you have identified that has a link in some way to this person or this case or this incident, and you need to investigate and decide if there's any evidentiary value to raise them to the level of a suspect.
And what's the difference between a person of interest and a suspect?
A person of interest is typically just on the periphery. Again, it's just somebody you have to check off the box to make sure that you've looked into them as much as you can, and the suspect has more concrete connection to the case.
Okay. Now, we're talking about people who are identified as persons of interest right now. Okay. You indicated Marty Annell.
Yes.
All right. Marty's connection to the crime
Right.
was what?
That he was the maintenance man at the apartment complex, and he had found the screen.
Okay. And how did law enforcement find the screen?
Marty told them about it and took them to it.
Why did Marty never rise to the level of a suspect?
He had no motive, no means. He had an alibi. Laura Knapp alibied him, said she was with him the entire weekend.
Did it ever become suspicious to the Minot PD when Marty committed suicide approximately 18 months after Anita's death?
I believe it did.
Okay. And was there follow-up that was done?
Yes.
And did that follow-up elevate Marty to the level of a suspect?
No.
Why not?
Again, there was nothing concrete there that connected him to this crime.
Okay. Was Minot PD able to satisfy themselves with regards to the reason for Marty's suicide?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that?
Well, as his sister and Laura have testified, there was a lot of issues going on with him in his life. There's a family history of suicide. He had a multitude of reasons why he may have committed suicide.
Did Marty cooperate with the investigation?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how many times he was interviewed?
I do not.
Okay. Was MPD ever able to verify anything in Vern Olson's statement about Marty having a gun or knife collection?
Not that I'm aware of.
You said that Michael Van was a person of interest.
Yes.
Money Mike. All right. Why was he a person of interest?
Just because he was the individual who was contacting Anita. There was information that he was possibly romantically interested in her.
Okay. But he never made it to the level of suspect, did he?
No.
Why not?
He had an alibi. He had friends that had said that they were with him at the time that the murder happened.
And Minot PD was able to verify that alibi?
Yes.
Okay. Did your investigation determine whether or not Mr. Van even had any idea where Anita lived?
No, he indicated that he had never been to her apartment and didn't know where she lived.
So Minot's PD struck him off their list?
Yes.
Mr. Van, where is he these days?
He's deceased.
Okay. When did he pass?
I believe it was 2009.
And what was his cause of death? Do you know?
He died from an asthma attack.
Tyler Schmaltz, another person of interest, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why was Tyler a person of interest?
I believe some people were throwing his name out, that he was infatuated with Anita, that he, may have been obsessed with her. So
Was there any indication of that in your investigation?
No.
Okay. What did the investigation unveil as to where Tyler was at around the time of Anita's death?
I believe he had said he was at his apartment playing online video games.
Okay. Now, we've established that Tyler lived in the same apartment complex as Anita and Nichole, correct?
Correct.
Who moved there first?
I believe he was in there first.
Okay. And did Tyler live with anybody?
He lived with his brother.
And the boys both lived in that apartment complex?
Yes.
All right. Were they in the same building as Anita?
No, there were 3 buildings to the north of where Anita and Nicole's apartment was.
Was Minot PD, through investigation, able to verify Tyler's alibi?
Yes.
Now, in reviewing Anita's phone records, both phone and text, call and text, were you able to determine what, if any, contact she had had with Tyler recently?
I didn't see any contact with Tyler in her phone.
Okay. It had been quite some time since they'd spoken.
Yes.
All right. You were present for questioning that involved a man running, right?
Correct.
All right. What do you know about this runner?
So I know that Becky Ehrman had contacted the police department, I believe it was the following day after the discovery of the body, to report that she had seen this individual running in the area.
Okay. And what came from that lead?
So she provided a description. Eventually, the police department enlisted the use of a sketch artist to create a sketch of what this person looked like. That was released to the media. And then subsequently, an individual came forward and said that, hey, that looks like me, and I was, in fact, running in that area on that date and time.
Okay. You observed the sketch, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe the person in the sketch?
To me, it looked like a possibly Hispanic male, short hair.
Okay. And did the person who came forward match that description?
Yes.
And were you able to determine if that person had any involvement whatsoever with this case?
He did not.
You've heard the name Devin Hall, right?
Yes.
And you've heard the name Jerome Vivier, right?
Yes.
Okay. What is your understanding of Minot PD's investigation of those two?
So early on in the investigation, like I said, they were following as many leads as they could. And when police had contact with Devin Hall on June 11th, which was just over a week after this homicide, they determined they should look into him as he was possibly a person of interest.
Okay. And what did that looking into him involve?
He was interviewed. His family, friends were all interviewed, and they went out to Wolf Point, Montana, where he was from, and interviewed individuals there.
Okay. Now, you said that Devin Hall was looked into for a break-in on June 11th. Is that right?
Yes.
Where in the city did that break-in occur?
That was on Sioux Street.
Is Sioux Street anywhere near Northgate Apartments?
No.
What was, to your understanding from the investigation, Devin Hall's condition when he was arrested?
He was intoxicated.
And do you know approximately how many times Devin Hall was interviewed?
I do not. It was multiple.
Okay. And you were present for Sergeant Goodman's testimony when he testified about going out to Montana to interview him again.
Correct.
What other efforts did Minot PD make with regards to corroborating Devin's rendition of accounts of where he was at or around the time of the murder?
Objection, narrative question, Your Honor.
Overruled. She just asked what they did, so she can answer that.
I know they tried to find train records from Amtrak. They, again, like I said, interviewed family and friends to corroborate his version of the weekend. They spoke with individuals in and around Wolf Point, Montana, other businesses, a hotel where they had stayed that weekend. They received a video from a family friend.
Okay. So I'm going to back you up a little bit. You said that they checked train records. Why did they check train records?
So the Devin Hall and Jerome Vivier and all of the rest of the family and friends among that group had been in Wolf Point, Montana that weekend. They had gone for high school graduation on Friday, June 1st. And then they were scheduled to return to Minot on the 2nd on the train. However, half of them were going to be on the train and some of them were going to be in a vehicle driven by Nova Wetzel. Nova's vehicle broke down, so they had to stay an extra day, which was confirmed by the hotel in Wolf Point, saying that Nova had a hotel room for June 1st and June 2nd. And then they eventually returned to Minot on Sunday, June 3rd on the train and in the vehicle.
Okay. Was there anything else that was corroborated by the hotel?
Yes. Detective Goodman spoke with an employee at the hotel to confirm again that Nova Wetzel had rooms reserved for them on Friday, June 1st and Saturday, June 2nd. And the hotel employee also commented that he had to call the police on Saturday night, June 2nd, because the boys had broken into the kitchen at the hotel.
Okay. So was Sergeant Goodman able to corroborate that police contact?
That I'm not sure.
Okay. But that was information that was, in fact, corroborated with the hotel?
Yes.
Now, you indicated that there was a video that had been received by from the family. What was that?
Nova Wetzel provided a video, a home movie that she had taken. She was recording the individuals when they were getting off the train at the Amtrak station in Minot.
Okay. And what date was that?
It was Sunday, June 3rd.
Okay. Approximately what time?
The train would have gotten in a little after 9 p.m., 9:20-ish.
Okay. And what family members got off that train?
There were several. Devin Hall was one of them. There was an Alyssa, Jake, and I'm sorry, I don't remember all of the names off the train.
Now, you're aware that Jerome Vivier had an arrest, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. For GSI. Do you remember the date of that GSI?
It was May 20th of 2007.
Okay. So Jerome would have been on bond at that point in time. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Are you aware of him leaving the state following that bond order?
Yes.
And what did your investigation uncover with regards to whether or not he could leave the state?
His attorney had petitioned the court to allow him to leave the state so he could attend his graduation in Fraser, Montana, and the judge granted that.
Did you look into the GSI that Jerome Vivier, I'm going to say committed because he was convicted of it, committed?
Just briefly, I don't know many of the details of it. I only know that the victim in that incident was a relative of his cousin, I believe.
Now, you're also familiar with Jerome Vivier's name being on the list from the 101 Club, as Mr. Sand had indicated previously to one of the officers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you able to determine if he and Anita were at the 101 Club on the same evening?
According to that list, they were.
Okay. Were you able to determine if they came in at the same time?
I believe the times were not the same. They were off by a half hour, maybe an hour.
Okay. And how long before Anita's murder was that?
That was around that May timeframe when the GSI occurred, so it was a week or two.
Okay. And do you know the date of the contact at the club? Or the date that they were both at the club?
May 19th, maybe?
Okay. And he was charged with the GSI that occurred May 20th?
Yes.
Were you able to, did the investigation determine whether or not Jerome had any contact with Anita at Club 101?
No.
Okay. It didn't determine that?
There was no indication of any contact between the two of them.
Okay. Is there any indication that they interacted at all?
No.
Any indication that he followed her home?
No.
That he had any idea where she lived?
No.
Now, we've heard a lot about this knife and Devon Hall's connection to it.
Yes.
Okay. What did the investigation determine with regards to that knife and Devon Hall's connection?
So he had at one point said he had a knife like that that he had taken from Jerome Vivier in Wolf Point, that he had it for maybe a day and then he gave it back or left it in Jerome's house in Wolf Point. Other individuals and family members of his had stated it was a knife similar to the one recovered in this case.
Okay. Similar?
Yes.
Okay. How did it differ?
The design on the handle was different.
Did there come a point in time that MPD was able to actually definitively state that that wasn't the same knife?
Yes, at some point in time, I believe it was Nova Wetzel, had turned over a knife to the police department that was the knife that they were all referring to, which had a completely different design on it.
Okay. And what did she do with that knife?
She turned it over to the police department.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with Devon Hall's criminal history, correct?
Correct.
All right. What typically is he getting arrested for?
The history that I've seen, he seems to have a habit of getting intoxicated and breaking into homes. I believe he may have sexually assaulted some females.
Okay. When was that?
2010. I don't remember the exact date. It was after 2007.
Okay. Is it fair to say he keeps getting caught?
He does.
What does that tell you about his skill as a cat burglar?
He may not be very good at it.
Now, you indicated that when he was arrested on June 11th, 2007, he was highly intoxicated.
Yes.
Okay. Can you be more specific?
Well, I wasn't present. I'm only going off of the reports that I read for that case. He was staying in an apartment with Nova Wetzel on Sioux Street. I believe her apartment was in the 800 building, Sioux Street. And then the building that he was arrested for breaking into was the 804 building, which is directly behind the 800 building. So it appeared that he was just intoxicated and ended up going into the wrong apartment.
And he was found with a knife at that apartment, wasn't he?
Yes.
What was your understanding of where he got that knife from?
So reading the report, he was found in one apartment, and the homeowner there chased him out of the apartment, and then another tenant in the building actually followed suit. They chased him down, and there was a brief altercation somewhere. He then ran into the building and entered a different apartment, where he was later found hiding in a closet with a kitchen knife that he had grabbed out of the kitchen in his pocket.
Do you have any idea where he was?
He thought he was in Williston. He kept calling the police officers Williston pigs.
How far from Minot is Williston?
It's about a 2-hour drive.
During that time that he had broken in on June 11th, did he injure anybody?
No.
All right. Lastly, you indicated that the defendant was a person of interest, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Why was she a person of interest?
Because she lived there, she had a tenuous relationship with Anita.
Okay. Now, when you say tenuous, what do you mean?
By all accounts, from everybody but the defendant, they did not get along. They were to the point where they were trying to see if they could get out of the lease so one of them could move out of the apartment.
Okay. Did you ever interview the defendant?
Yes.
Okay. Permission to approach, Your Honor.
You may.
Okay. Do you remember the date that you interviewed the defendant?
It was in March of 2022. I don't remember the exact date. It was a Saturday.
Okay. Detective, I'm showing you, or Sergeant, I'm sorry. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 26 for identification, 36 pages in length, and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, this is a transcript of when I spoke with her in March of 22.
Okay. Now, aside from some redactions required by law, is that a fair and accurate transcript of your interview with Nichole Rice?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay. State moves to introduce Exhibit 26.
Mr. Sand,
May I approach briefly, Your Honor?
you may.
I will be starting the Monica Cementelli transcripts today. Depending on when they break for lunch, it may be sooner, but right now I have it scheduled for 4 my time. So in about 3.5 hours from now.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 26 as requested.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 26 is received without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant, I'm going to hand you State's Exhibits 26, 19, 16, 17, and 13.
Can you repeat those again for me, please, Ms. Sorgan?
13, 16, 17, 19.
Thank you.
Okay. Sergeant, if you reviewed all of those previously,
Yes.
and those are the statements that Ms. Rice gave to law enforcement over the course of the years, is that right?
Yes.
When you reviewed those, what were you looking for?
Consistency?
Did you find consistency?
No.
In fact, you found a lot of inconsistencies, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. In particular,
Objection, Your Honor. She's leading the witness and she's testifying herself when she says that. That's for cross.
Sustained.
in particular, Sergeant, what did you find that was inconsistent?
Her statements about her whereabouts the weekend of the murder.
Did her statements change over time?
They did.
Were you able to easily keep track of how her statements changed?
No, it's tough to keep track of because there were so many differences in the various statements that she gave. It's hard for me to remember exactly which statement had which differences, but definitely I know that there were glaring differences in different interviews that she did.
Did you do anything to assist yourself in figuring out these differences?
Yes, in order to try and make sense of it and keep track of them, Detective Talbot and I had created kind of a visual depiction of the differences. We created a timeline where we color-coded the different statements for the different dates and then where the differences were in each different statement.
Okay. And do you believe it would assist the jury in determining or in assessing these differences in these statements by seeing a timeline like that?
It may, because like I said, from one statement to another, it's not that they're completely different. It's just little details in each statement that are changed.
Okay. And did you prepare something with regards to that to assist the jury?
Yes, so I had our Intel analyst assist me with creating a digital version of the hand-drawn copy that Detective Talbot and I had created.
Okay. Is that a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this isn't going to be offered in evidence, but you're familiar with this flash drive, correct?
Correct.
And that contains your PowerPoint, doesn't it?
Yes.
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this appears to be an important point.
Your Honor.
Okay. And my understanding is that the information in that demonstrative exhibit is going to be based upon the 5 interviews that were given by the defendant.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And all those interviews are in evidence?
They are.
And this is, again, under Rule 1006, is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, you have an objection. I'm sorry, Mr. Sand, you have an objection based upon, if I understood correctly, having not viewed this demonstrative exhibit.
Yes, Your Honor. And just, briefly, we just became aware that they were trying to introduce, or not introduce, but show this to the jury under Rule 1006. And although they may not be entering it into evidence, it's still governed by the rules of evidence. So it's governed by Rule 1006. And this is not a demonstrative for closing. This is a demonstrative to be shown to the jury and explained by a witness on the witness stand. It's different than a closing argument that we're going to summarize what you learned during this entire trial. This is a witness that is going to be explaining it to the jury. And under 1006, just a quick reading of the rule, they got to share it with us. This is something that's being shown to the jury during their case in chief. We haven't seen this. The court, Your Honor, was very clear at the February 27th hearing that no more stuff is going to be disclosed after March 4th. This is not something for closing. This is during their case in chief. So I feel like this is the first time that we're seeing it. I do have some additional rules that I need to look over. I've just looked over Rule 1006. Your Honor, if I may have 1 second to look at my computer.
Sure.
Your Honor, if I could direct the court to the explanatory note of Rule 1006. I just have the North Dakota Courts website pulled up. I think the most current, the effective date of this rule was March 1st, 2014. I don't see that there's been an update to it. But looking at the explanatory note, it specifically says that we are allowed to analyze, or the other party is allowed to analyze the underlying data to prepare for any challenges to the summary that we may wish to make. We haven't looked at the summary. We haven't been able to analyze, make sure that it's correct, make sure that it's consistent. And like I said, this is occurring during their case in chief, not during closing. This is not a demonstrative for the jury. I don't need to repeat myself, Your Honor, but that's our argument.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Sorgan, do you have any response?
Yes, Your Honor. Well, first off, the underlying data is the exhibits that were introduced being the statements of the defendant. Those were very clearly turned over previously to the defense. They've had those for quite some time. I understand that they want to look at this exhibit. It's a 3-slide PowerPoint. It shouldn't take them too terribly long to review that. And I would note, however, this has been utilized in cases in chief previously, in cases in Ward County, specifically State v. Vickerman, case 51-2019, CR 00919, and case in chief in State versus Kamari Kennedy, 51-2021, CR 01114.
Your Honor, if I may respond briefly?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I understand that the state, it's their position that we can review this briefly. We have our case in chief to prepare for. We have closings to prepare for. I know that we have an hour and a half lunch. We're going to use every bit of that. This is not the time for us to be reviewing something like this, Your Honor. This is why that this type of information is supposed to be disclosed much
Sooner.
a lot longer before the start of trial, Your Honor.
All right.
And we need to cross-reference it. I understand we have the statements. We haven't cross-referenced all those statements, dug out the statements, even if it's the 3-page report, we have dozens of pages to cross-reference it to.
Got it. Ms. Sorgan, is there any reason why this hasn't been supplied earlier?
Your Honor, it was just basically created. It was a matter of, this was very voluminous and confusing to go through these statements.
Oh, I got that part. But when did you create it?
I believe that this was created, if I could find it, Your Honor. Oops, that's the wrong one. Within the last few weeks, Your Honor.
All right. All right, thank you very much. The court will take under advisement your request here with regard to this information and see if I can come up with a plan for how we're going to resolve it. Time is 37 minutes after 11. We will be in recess until 1 o'clock, at which point I will make a ruling and we will go forward. Thank you.
All right, we're going to call it for part one of today for this trial. They were getting close to lunch with them having to review all of this. They're probably going to do this and then go to lunch and be off for a little while. So we will pick back up later for this, and we're going to keep the Monica Simontelli audio transcripts still at 4, unless there's enough people that want me to push it back till 5 or 6 my time, but we'll keep it then, and I will be back on then. Thank you for watching.